Hello and welcome back to my channel. I will be presenting a presentation on mechanics of writing for teaching for my TESOL class, which is teaching English to speakers of other languages. So let's get started. So I will be presenting chapter 14, practical tasks for mastering the mechanics of writing and going just beyond. So, first of all, what are the mechanics of writing? The mechanics, I took this quote from the textbook that, in the bold, mechanics of writing are letter recognition, letter discrimination, sound-to-letter correspondence, word recognition, basic rules of spelling, and then spelling rules, capitalization, production of sentences, and short paragraphs for more advanced stages. And you guys can read this quote for yourselves. I'll leave it up here. And then I thought if any of you have ever used the step into reading book format, it's really helpful to engage beginning readers, that they have this easy system that increases in difficulty that I used as a kid. So first, I'm going to show you guys a video that will gauge your interest into the importance of grammar, because it can save your life.
Good morning, Monsieur Lapedite. I am Colonel Hans Lander of the SS. I was hoping you could invite me inside your home and we could have a discussion.
Of course, please come
Now, as you may have heard, I am in charge of rounding up all the Jews in this village.
in. Yes, I have heard that.
Are you aware of any Jews hiding in the area?
No, I assure you there haven't been no Jews in this village.
There hadn't been no Jews, so there have been some Jews.
Oh, sorry, no, I meant there haven't been any Jews. No Jews here.
Sorry, I was confused by a double negative. You see, grammar is very important to the Nazi Party. Now, are you familiar with one Shoshana Dreyfus?
Yes, I know her. Me and her buy our milk at the same market.
Me and her. Surely you meant to say she and I, no?
Yes, of course.
The trick is to take the other person out of the sentence to see if it makes sense. Me buy milk? I think not. I buy milk, you see?
I swear I do not know where Mademoiselle Dreyfus is at.
Did you just end a sentence with a preposition?
Forgive me, Colonel.
When was the last time you saw the Jew Dreyfus?
About a month ago, I was walking by the river Bayonne, and I saw Dreyfus fishing, so I went down to the riverbank to see if it was her, but I couldn't get a good view.
Did you really think I was so stupid I wouldn't recognize a run-on sentence?
Sorry, there was no Jews here.
Jew or Jews, plural?
Plural.
Wrong! You have to match your subject with your verb.
What do you want from me?
I've heard from numerous sources you are hiding Mademoiselle Dreyfus.
Oh. From whom? Don't kill me, please.
Monsieur Lapedite, I have one more question for you. If you answer correctly, I will leave you and your family at peace. If not, you are coming with me. Now, let's say you were writing a list. Would you or would you not put a comma before the and?
It depends on whether you are following the Chicago Manual of Style or the Associated Press Guide.
Hiding under the floorboards, I have finally found you.
Wait. You are hiding under the floorboards, or is she?
A dangling participle.
A dangling participle.
So as you can see, one day grammar might be able to save your life. So when writing a new language, there are some interesting concepts that come up for those who are familiar with the Romanized language, and it might be more difficult for those who are not familiar with speaking in a Romanized language. So the important part about writing is that it places greater demand on the writer. It places greater demands on the text, since most time written instructions lack immediate feedback, which forces you to actively think about about the sentence you're trying to come up with. And there are two important goals of writing. The one goal is that the first goal is that it places value on the reader who is trying to understand what you are writing and trying to understand the communication. And then also it is a communicative process that suggests an interaction between the speaker and the listener, or the speaker and the text. So the first key concept is cooperative principle, found on page 209 of the Teaching English as a Second or Foreign Language textbook. And the cooperative principle is understood as a symbolic relationship between the writer and the text, that the writer is obliged to write understandable text, and then at the early stage of writing, in the English language, the primary goal is to recognize and reproduce the elements of the target language, such as letters or other graphic shapes. And a second important objective in the goal of writing is the acquisition of the mechanics of reading. In other words, to gain a sound basis for letter and word recognition when reading. So one thing that I found very interesting is that for an EFL or English as a foreign language student, that when they are learning to write the English language, they may boost their own understanding of their own native tongue, because students might already know how to design an efficient program that suits their particular needs, which means that they might transition what they've learned from their language into learning English. So one thing that's important to consider when you're teaching English for people to write is, do the English as a foreign language, do the EFL students write right to left or left to right? Do they write up down or do they write down up? And depending on and because English is written left to right, up down, depending on the direction of the written language that the EFL students are familiar with, will show how easy or how hard it is for them to acquire the English written system. So for example, Italian and Finnish are like English, but languages such as Arabic or Japanese are not. And so those students will have a harder time learning. And then on page 210 for conceptual underpinnings, students who are familiar with a Roman alphabet, which means letters that you can find in many languages, such as German, French, Spanish, just to name a few. it is harder for students who are not familiar with the Romanized alphabet, such as those who write in Arabic or Chinese, because of the phonological processing route. So teachers will have to help their students learn the difference. A character-based writing system or meaning-based writing system might be more difficult, and these students will need more training associating the graphic sign with the vocal sound. But for students who are familiar with the Romanized alphabet, they will not need as much training associating the letter with the phonological sound. And then another important key concept is the mechanics of writing. And the mechanics of writing, in my first slide, I defined it for you. Talks about what the early stages for such as letter recognition, letter discrimination, sound to letter correspondence, etc. And in order to learn how to discriminate one letter from another, such as B or D, the teacher must help the students practice. So another interesting key concept word is orthography. And so what that means is students who are familiar with the English language often are used to it and take it for granted, but students who are learning English for the first time will learn that there are many rules that do and don't apply, and this can often become very confusing and frustrating, and the teacher might even want to throw up his or her hands in the air because of the rules or the irregularities. So for example, a good example is the letter C for English consonants, that there is a pattern in the word call, cook, cup. You have that K sound, but for words such as sell, cinch, or cyst, you have the S sound. And so there is no one hard, fast rule. And then also for the words chocolate or chorus, the CH is pronounced differently for these two words. Chocolate or chorus, that also can become very difficult for students. Unfortunately, there is no help that the teacher can give the students other than tell them that they have to just learn to memorize these irregularities. And teachers also need to be aware of the silent consonants in English, which can also pose additional trouble, such as the letter E is silent in the word right, but you use the I, you pronounce the I the same way. So in order to summarize, when teaching consonants, teachers need their students to focus on only the unique features of the English writing system for those that are used to the Romanized alphabet. But for those who are used to a meaning-based system, such as Chinese, teachers need to emphasize the recognition of every consonant letter. And then onto English vowels. The vocabulary word CVC stands for environment for short vowels, or CV stands for silent letters. So for example, the word pin or pine, if I write it on the board, these two vowels, you pronounce them differently, even though it might look like they are pronounced the same way. And it doesn't have anything to do with word length, rather it has to do with a letter position, such as the E at the end. So there is a video that I want to show on sound spelling correspondences. So the purpose of that was to show how when you're reading basic words to a learner at any age level, you have to teach them the differences of how you pronounce the words, even though the letters might not match up with the rules that you're used to. However, there are some exceptions. Okay. So then the next topic that I'm going to talk about are classroom applications. So these three pictures were found in the textbook, and they talk about writing, and there are some exercises. So the three main goals of writing: number one, to enhance letter recognition; number two, to practice sound spelling correspondences; and three, to help the learner move from letters and words to meaningful sentences and larger units of discourse. So there are also three major tasks: matching tasks, writing tasks, and sound spelling tasks. And I took pictures from the textbook to show you. For example, matching tasks. The major objective is to practice the quick and effective recognition of the English letters. So that would be this figure right here. That you have the directions to find certain letters or recognize when they are grouped with other letters. And the purpose of this task would be that learners would need to distinguish a particular letter from other similar letters, such as B and P or D, and beginning or ending with the same lowercase or capital letter as well. And then writing tasks, which is this figure. The major objective for these tasks are to allow students to produce the shapes of letters, both as recognition and as a production task. And this is only needed for learners who come from meaning-based systems, such as Chinese or Japanese. Otherwise, students that know the language like French or Spanish who use these same letters can skip through this. And then the final figure, this figure, sound spelling correspondence tasks. The major objective is for the learner to match individual sounds or sequences of sounds and words with their written form. So, in the example here, it says, read the following words out loud. You have words such as ball and, right here, this one. Ball, call, fall, wall, but the sound is different in the word shall. even though A is matched with two L's or AL, it's different. So you have to be careful of those rule breaker examples. And an important feature in this early stage is the need to have learners use the appropriate capitalization rules, as well as some basic rules of punctualization. And a good tip for teachers is to give their students plenty of opportunities for copying. And then and then I also have a video to help show you what teachers teaching English to EFL students, what it looks like.
Hello YouTube, it's James here with another video tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to teach your Japanese students the question, what are you doing? So what are you doing in Japanese is, あなたは何をしていますか? or あなたは何をしている? I like to have a set of verb cards with the ing form. You're going to have to translate what are you doing so that your students can understand. So this is the way I would do it. What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't tilt their heads, meaning they don't understand. What are you doing? 意味は、あなたは何していますか? あなたは何していますか? Okay, so what are you doing? I'm singing. I'm singing. 私は今歌っています. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Gesture everything. Just like in the other video that I did. What are you doing? I'm walking. I'm walking. 私は今歩いてる. Get up and gesture. Walking. Oh! Do something silly like that. What are you doing? I'm swimming. I'm swimming. 私は今泳いでる. Shark! Dun, 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 dun. What are you doing? I'm dancing.
So I won't show the entirety of that video, but you get the basic idea that that teacher was repeating and was using hand gestures to mimic what the action is, and this is for basic sentence writing. And then now on to more advanced tasks. So there are three types of writing tasks that serve as a framework for commutative writing activities. You have practical writing tasks, emotive writing tasks, and school-oriented tasks. And the first practical writing tasks are procedural in nature and have a predictable format, and they make them particularly suitable for writing activities that focus primarily on spelling and morphology, such as creating a list, a thing to-do list, or a thing completed list. And then other types of practical writing activities might include the completion of forms on paper or on the computer, and those would be helpful for your adult education learners. And then the second task, emotive writing tasks, are concerned with personal writing. Such personal writing would include letters to friends and narratives describing personal experiences. And when teaching letter writing, teachers should emphasize format, punctuation, and spelling of appropriate phrases and expressions. So these would be useful also for adult education learners, and what makes it exceptionally helpful is if you give the students the choice of which topic they want to choose, then they will feel like they are actually utilizing these skills in the real world when it comes time for them to, and they won't be so nervous. And then finally, school-oriented tasks. These are tasks that you actually use in school, writing assignments, summaries, answering questions. And at the early stages of writing, the assignments and written tasks might be very short and simple, and answers might be single phrases or sentences for these tasks, but as the level increases, they will get longer. And then also the last topic that I wanted to discuss for the advanced writing is journaling. So a lot of people might say, well, what's the point of journaling? It doesn't really serve any purpose. but I feel like I have to anyways for the present moment. But the journal can start an the journal is a great way for teacher-student communication, and you can also use it on computers as well, such as creating a forum or discussion board that can help engage other students as well. And then finally, my personal reflection. So when I read this chapter, I found that I often forgot how complex my own language is, and I have always thought that English is an easy language because it has a limited number of letters in its alphabet. However, the chapter helps me realize that because there are many irregularities in grammar, for example, I before E except after C, I realized that teaching English and teaching how to write English is a lot more difficult than I previously thought. And finally, when I was reminded of those writing tasks on page 213 to 217, such as tracing over the letter C or the letter A or B, I remembered that was really helpful for my own personal childhood, and I would use those even for adult education classes to trace over the dotted lines, because in my high school, we had Chinese classes, and the high school students would trace over the characters on dotted lines, so I can affirmatively say that is really helpful. And then finally, my critical question to leave you with is, how would you use a dialogue journal to benefit your students based off the concepts we learned in this chapter? Is it better to use a paper or a pencil version or a computer and keyboard version? Why? And the reason why I ask you this is because in the book, it talks about how to use a journal in the early writing stages, but it doesn't talk about why it's important or why it's beneficial. This has been this has been the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you for watching.